At T-Mobile, our critical mission is providing unparalleled 5G coverage for when connectivity is mission critical. Introducing T-Priority, America's best 5G network experience for first responders, even in times of congestion. More capacity, faster speeds, better coverage. T-Priority from T-Mobile, built for tomorrow's emergencies, ready today. Discover more at t-priority.com.
For qualifying organizations on eligible rate plans, coverage not available in some areas and may be impacted by emergencies.
Welcome to Worse Than You with Mo Fry Pasic. I'm Mo, and every week I'm asking today's most captivating artists how they got their acts together. This show is not about their best or most famous or most financially lucrative work. It's about the work that means the most to them, their creative process, and why they make their art. It's the thing that they say, that's a bit of me, babes. This week's guest is a comedian, actor, and musician based in Brooklyn, New York. Very cool. His debut comedy album of jokes and songs, Teeth Like Beak, dropped in September 2024 with Absolutely Records. Doing a lot of sound stings here. Sorry, friends. He's a cast member of HeadGum's award-winning podcast, Rude Tales of Magic. He's written and performed original music for Sesame Street, iconic. The Tonight Show with Jimmy Fallon, iconic was just a personal thought, not a show. Comedy Central, and The Story Pirates. And he's one half of the incredible duo, Pasic and Platt. Heard of it? Please welcome to the pod, Tim Platt. Ready, set, show!
Thank you for having me. What
Tim,
fun.
Really good job waiting on that thing.
Thank you so much. Well, I took a cue. I took the cue.
I said your name, and then usually people call. And they go, oh, me. And I say, no, ready, set, show.
No, but I took direction from you. I'm really good at taking direction.
You are good at taking direction.
That's actually...
A skill?
It's half true, I think.
Are you? Well, I only know you because we trust each other collaboratively,
Yeah.
so I only know you to be good at it. But I'm wondering if you're not good at it with people that you don't trust, meaning everyone. I'm kidding, not everyone, but everyone.
I think what I will say is I actually think I am good at taking direction, but I have to sort of know the rules of the relationship. Like if I'm acting and it's like a director, I'm great at taking direction. But if it's like any way amorphous where it's like, I'm thinking about like improv classes from back in the day.
There's not a designated authority in that space.
Well, look, there is, but I'm like, who are you? You know, I feel like I do.
Yeah, like we designate it.
Yes. I feel like when there's a vacuum of like true authority, and I consider true authority with a capital T, you know, a label or my respect. And not every improv teacher has my respect, unfortunately.
But they do have a label.
They do.
Well, I'm very excited to be having you on the pod today.
Thank you.
Because you are a longtime collaborator of mine in the sketch duo Pasic and Platt.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you and I process and create in many ways very similarly.
Sure.
But in the ways we don't is why we succeed, is because we support each other in that. So I'm excited for people to hear about your creative process and how you make stuff, because you're also very prolific. You do a lot of stuff, and you do a lot of stuff in unconventional ways that I think hearing about would benefit a lot of people, because as I say a lot, like the rules of making stuff and doing stuff really hindered me, of like, you have to write like this, you have to do this. And I'm like, well, I'm not that. Whereas you would just kind of make. And I appreciate that. So I'm happy to have you here. We are talking today for a Too Long Didn't Read about a specific project that we can zoom out. But what are you bringing here today?
Well, it's funny. You brought up that prompt, and a few different things popped up in my head. If I can just like run through them out loud, and we'll see what comes up. You know, I just came out with my first comedy album. I'm really proud of it. It is like the most high profile thing I've ever done. It's not very high profile. But it's like...
Absolutely, it's huge.
Thank you. But it's like, it is a big thing that I am eager to talk about, but I don't really think fits into the premise of what you guys have here.
How so?
Well, it's like, you know, it's not the biggest thing. It's not the most recent thing, but like something that fits into a good place for conversation. And I feel a little... Full disclosure, this is sort of like a promo tour of me being like, I want to talk about this album, But I really, the other thing that I keep on thinking about, to take the premise of the show seriously in that way, is that I did this thing in 2013, 14, where I made a bunch of YouTube videos pretending to be in a pyramid scheme.
Oh, I remember this. Yeah, like an MLM.
Yes,
Yeah.
multi-level marketing.
Yeah.
And I feel like that was a thing that I did for nobody and no reason. That's not true. I had a bunch of reasons to do it, but it was like one of the first gestures of me trying to be like, oh, they say just make something. Maybe I should just make something, you know?
Yeah.
And that, but
I did that.
Yeah, but that it was like, this could be my web series. This could be my thing. And the idea was basically to like try to infiltrate the existing YouTube algorithm of people who are already in this very specific pyramid scheme.
And that at that time too, it was like
Vima was the company, Verve was the product. There's healthy energy drinks. Eventually got shut down for being a pyramid scheme by the FCC. But that was a project where...
But you were actually... You were pretending to be part of a real world.
Yes, I was hoping...
That was already existing. Yeah.
Because there were a lot of people on YouTube who were promoting like tips.
But it's very performance artist of you, right? There wasn't... Yeah.
Yeah, I was hoping that people would follow... I was hoping that people in that pyramid scheme would believe I was a part of them and we could try to like collaborate together. Which was not true, but it was also me doing sort of in stepping into the work that you and I do together of me doing this like
bending reality,
like pure kayfabe,
what's kayfabe?
Kayfabe is like I think it's a wrestling term where it's like kayfabe is like I'm the villain, you know, like it's what
like
you
heel.
Yeah, it's like what you're putting out into the world, and you don't, and even though it's like clearly
subversive.
not real, you are not breaking character, you know.
Understood. Andy Kaufman-esque.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And I do think that was an early stage of me being like, how do I act and improvise and do comedy at the same time? And the idea was just to like, I'm gonna be this guy, and he's talking directly to camera, and he's like. This is very much in the style of what these videos was like, hey, so you're a college student and you're going to campus and you're trying to make money. Why do a 9 to 5 when you can like sell energy drinks? By the way, you're not selling energy drinks. You're selling an opportunity. I don't sell energy drinks. What I do is get people on board with an opportunity that can change their lives. And but all you gotta do is buy the starter pack. And then because we don't sell the energy drink in stores. So if you want the drink, you have to buy the starter pack. And if you're doing that, you might as well get like the next pack, the ultimate. And then you can share people that energy drink, and they're gonna like the energy drink so much that they're going to want to buy some. Don't sell them the energy drink. Don't sell them the energy drink. Get them to buy a starter pack too, and you will get a cut of whoever they get to buy the starter pack. And so there were all these like...
Breath.
Yeah, they didn't breathe.
No, breathe.
Me?
Us.
Oh, okay.
Because you dropped in. I need Tim back.
Yeah. But so that was like a mode...
But here's a pause. You know that person inside and out. I think that's the interesting part where we talk about lampooning or caricature and like I think you are genuinely obsessed without judgment. You're confounded as how that person exists and why.
Yeah.
But I think those asking that question is what leads you to be able to 10 years later still be able to speak like that person.
Yeah. And I think that was the start, I think, of me trying to take seriously some version of character-based comedy, which is what a lot of my stand-up is and a lot of the work that we do together. Yeah. And having character be a very thin line of like, I'm basically presenting as myself, but just like with horrible opinions, you know? And like where character exists in that. I think that was like the beginning of how I started really making stuff for myself. And
it is for you because that is, I genuinely, I mean that because it's like, that's going to be misunderstood by a lot of people. And also you're going to be confused for being that person actually for a lot of people. So it is an art purely for a niche. And I think that's a true artist in many ways, but it is difficult when that is what drives you artistically. And, you know, a tight 5 might be way easier to sell.
Yeah, it was super oblique. The audience wasn't clear. I mean, it was ultimately was like an internet audience.
I thought oblique was dark.
No, I think oblique is just cloudy.
Oh, okay.
That's why. I mean, if I'm wrong, I'm wrong.
No,
but
I'm asking.
Like sort of cloudy, obtuse.
Got it. Okay.
Sort of like left field, I suppose. Unclear.
So, but okay. So what I always say, I'm like, what excites me? I'm in listening to the podcast.
Yeah.
My sort of filler phrases to say what I'm going to say are always similar, and it's fun to listen back.
Sure.
And even myself as a human, be like, ooh, can I say something more directly? Can I just say, I want to talk about...
Yeah.
So that's part of this process, right? And I think you and I live in our creation doing that and explaining the thing while the thing is happening.
Mm-hmm.
And for those who don't know, Tim and I have been a sketch, stand-up meets improvised play duo. So we started making sketches and plays that were a blend of stand-up, sketch, and improvisation.
Yeah.
Because those were all our skills. That's where we were working in Brooklyn. And so we would, have handheld mics, but we would do these sort of antagonistic sketch characters that were blown out versions of either caricatures or ourselves, and sit in it in these long plays with premises that we had already built out, but lines and experiences with other improvisers we invite in that we have no idea where they're going to go.
Yeah.
And we also direct them to fuck with us.
Yeah.
And so that is what we are referencing when we say our work together.
Yeah.
But to tie it back into you even being like, oh, my album doesn't work for this prompt somehow. And I love that because
Sure.
of course it does.
Sure.
And any piece of art, I think the way you do one thing is the way you do everything. So any piece of art could be emblematic, I guess, of the way you create and your process.
Yeah.
But it is interesting to me, the one that you feel, that's why it means the most, right? The one that you feel is most clearly exemplary of that, or you're able to communicate your process so clearly. And I think because Teeth Like Beak is an amalgamation of so many different processes, it would be hard to parse through.
Yeah, I agree. I also think that, trying to be oh God, I can't believe I'm going to say this, but like
Indulge.
being like a multi-hyphenate comedian who feels very comedy forward and feels very much like comedy is a space I inhabit, but I am like to play with different forms and formats, and the part of me that is a polymath, don't want to do one thing on stage. I want to do characters, I want to do songs, I want to do jokes, I want to mix it all together. I don't want to sit in the same character for a long time as a stand-up. I like to do that.
It doesn't excite you.
I like to do that on stage with you and with others, but like as a comedic performer, I like to do everything at once. That was a real challenge to get that impulse to be discernibly stand up, I think. And I'm really proud of the album for doing that, you know? And I think that it did allow me to bring a lot of these impulses together in a way that was very legible, that wasn't obtuse, that wasn't oblique. And it's been a long time for me to get to a place where work I make cannot be described as oblique. You know what I mean?
Sure. So has it, but process-wise, has it been oblique to you, or do you feel that it has been oblique to others? Obsessed if we're using oblique wrong, but has it been cloudy to you?
No, but it's been a little bit desperate.
I need you to understand me to feel like I can be seen. Yeah,
I need you to know I can do this too. In the worst framing of it, it's a little like showy-offy. Like I want you to see everything I can do. Like I don't want you to see my limitations.
I think that's judgmental though, because I do think you have many talents, and I don't think everyone has many talents. And the assumption that everyone does, they just chose one, is wrong.
Sure. I was really inspired by Maria Bamford for a bunch of reasons.
Oh my God,
but like really early on in stand-up, I heard a quote from her that was like, to people who want to try comedy, like what would you recommend? And she just says like, she said something along the lines of like, just do what you think is funny on stage. And it sounds so simple, but like at the time when it felt like there were so many improvisers do this, sketch comedians do this, stand-ups do this, it felt like, oh, I can just like be as personal about what I think is funny and like think of it with no filter, and then there will be a way to present that on stage somehow.
That's literally the antithesis of desperation, right? It is saying like, you might not like this. This is just who I am, and I accept that, and you can come to me if you like that. Yeah,
and I think that gave me a lot of, that emboldened me to be like, well, okay, this voice is funny, so I'm going to do that. This joke is funny, so I'm going to do that. This song is funny, so I'm going to do that. But then after many years of doing stand-up, you see the joy of someone who knows how to sit in their thing, and like suddenly you're with them for 10 minutes, and then 15 minutes, and then a half hour, then an hour, and you're like, oh my God, like they're just doing one thing and I'm in their world. Well, I think it was a struggle for me to be like this scattershot energy. And it took me a long time to figure out how to make it okay for people to sit with that in a long form setting, I think. I think that was something I tried to be I think that's something that was a challenge to me, and something that I feel only now that I've like gotten to a real place of competency with.
Meaning when you do something, like once, like when you do that, or you've like appreciate others who do it and now appreciate your multifacetedness?
I appreciate it when other people who are trying to do less things on stage, that part of what is cool about that is like you're just hearing somebody talk and you're like,
That's magnificent.
and it's like after, it's been 30 minutes and like, wow, like there was no dip. While I have felt as a performer this feeling of like, well, now I'm doing this, but now I'm doing this, now I'm doing this, now I'm doing this. That's not a very natural rhythm to sustain attention. It's like it.
I also think it's just pure experience, right?
Sure.
Because it's like when you're first starting to cook, you're going to put every spice in there.
Exactly.
Whereas when you're a master Italian chef, you go, I just use egg.
Yeah.
Just an egg.
Yeah. And so a big thing for the album was the recording was, it was going to be just an audio recording and not like a special in that way. And so suddenly it was like, oh, I can't do any jokes that have any kind of like visual cue, you know? And
Ooh, that's hard.
But that made me cut out spices that I was so. But you have to see this joke. This is one of my favorite. You have to
But
see
you
this
won't
picture.
get it. Or
And I was like, well, no, that one's just out. And then Sebastian Genitale, Sebi, who directed the recording, just gave a great note that was like, just do what you can do with your guitar on your lap.
Yeah.
He was like, he wasn't like, the rest of the stuff is good, but like he saw an early version of the show that became the album, and he's like, it just really works when you're just you and the guitar, so let's keep it tight there. And that was very helpful for me to get rid of the feeling of like, but I want them to see every spice, and then to be like, it's just audio, and it's what do I have with the guitar in my lap. So it's songs, I still do characters with the guitar on my lap, I still do jokes, I still do stories, but it just like focused everything in a way that was something I really needed to put out something that I do feel like was a legible special, you know?
Love, exciting and new. Hello, Hannah Waddingham here. Have you seen the fabulous new Sun Princess? World-class entertainment, exceptional dining, and the greatest pizza ever. It's
Don't miss our Come Aboard sale with up to 40% off and free room upgrades. Visit princess.com or call your travel advisor to book. Princess Cruises. Terms and restrictions apply. Offer ends 2/28/25. Ships at Bermudan and British Registry.
Ever met a foundation that does it all? Say hi to NARS Light Reflecting Foundation. Makeup meets skincare in a bottle. It evens skin tone, blurs imperfections, and has a natural radiant finish. Plus, it's formulated with skincare ingredients to help strengthen your skin's barrier. With a newly expanded shade range of over 40 radiant shades to choose from and buildable all-day wear. NARS Light Reflecting Foundation. Find your perfect match.
What I like about this is that it's the same thing everyone realizes as an artist. What you're realizing is that you are enough.
Yeah, for sure.
It is. And it's like, we talked about this with Julio, where it's like, am I too much? Am I enough? Do I need to do more? I want to do less. It's all this sort of like critiques, but you find it in different ways. Whether you finally heard it via the guitar moment or like in acting, I think about, I didn't process when everyone was like, indicate versus experience, indicate. Sure. And then finally, Sudi, when we were rehearsing for Worse Than You, I was being a ham. I was like I was being like, oh, I know how to show that I'm sad now.
Yeah.
But Sudi was like, just be sad. And it was like, and then finally, like, I was just so tired and exhausted that I was just kind of going through the motions. And she's like, no, that is, like, but I didn't trust that the audience could see my experience. I was like, I have to show them. I have to do more than just a guitar on my lap.
Yeah.
And I think that's how you heard it.
So also in that vein, you know, I think the reason I brought up the Vima videos, Young Person Revolution was the hashtag.
Oh, that's what it was. What was it? YPR?
YPR, Young Person Revolution. Because that was the hashtag they were using. So I was like, if I use Young Person Revolution.
I met you around this time, and it was meta in a way where I was like, well, are you obsessed with it? Do you actually, what is it?
It was unclear. But like that was, I think.
I love that.
I think a big part of the comedy I like is putting on a mask and putting on character. And I think that was the beginning of me being like, oh, how far can I push that in my comedy? And then once I have a guitar in my lap, it's just like the mask is sort of off in a way. It's just like what happens. My voice changes. Like it's very...
You allow it. You allow whatever comes through.
I will riff more than I usually do on stage. I will be more personal. I will like be able to respond to the room in a different way, which is just a little more calm, a little less... I'm not just trying for the mask because I know it's off. similarly, I do these 2 podcasts, Rude Tales of Magic and Oh These Those Stars of Space, and they're both like gaming podcasts. Like
Yeah,
we're playing
with huge
games.
followings.
Yes, we have a great fans. It's really great. But that experience, specifically Rude Tales, which is D&D, that's like me stepping in character and then being out of character to be like, well, my character does this, and also this table talk of us like joking around, and then I'm back in character, and then I'm me again. And that was really instructive to me too, because we have really enthusiastic fans. It's really cool. And the fact that they were interested in what Tim said, or would laugh at what Tim said and not just what the character did, it really made me feel more comfortable to bring Tim into these scattershot performances of like, I'm doing character, doing a song, doing a joke, doing a character, and then be like, well, actually, Tim can be in here for a second. I felt massaged by the podcast to be able to do that more, and then guided there by just like, by the note of like, do it with the guitar, which is already leading me in that direction, which I maybe had felt, which I wouldn't have felt as comfortable doing. I don't think if the podcast had sort of let me know, there's people who would be
I don't
into
think
it.
you would have heard it. I think you've heard that advice before.
Yeah, sure.
You know what I mean? But I mean
yeah.
that like where we're resonating. Like, and I've heard the advice just be as well. You know what I mean? But it didn't hit.
Yeah.
And you know what excites me with all this is that when you and I work together, so one of the things that I was craving that I hate it is that I have a very, in any art I've done, anyone that's reviewed, it's like I am very flexible emotionally.
Yeah.
Meaning I can go from this to this to this to this. And it isn't whiplash. It isn't manic. It is like I'm comfortable flowing.
You're very committed.
Yes.
It's that's why I really like working with you, is because I think both you and I have a feeling that commitment is fun and commitment is funny.
But it's safety too.
Yes, that's true.
But that's what I'm speaking to. So in that same way, one, it's very funny because I think you and I, in a way that not a lot of people I know would die for a bit.
Yeah.
But not for attention, just because it's so fun to commit. It's like that Bob Odenkirk sketch where the guys are like toxically masculine. And we're like, so I'm going to marry you, dude. Like, and like they get married. But to that point, whenever I was playing, even with other improvisers, when it got anywhere near something that wasn't predictably funny or taboo or maybe intimate, like, and I don't mean physically, I mean emotionally.
Yeah.
Everyone ran. Everyone fucking ran.
Yeah,
and I was like, we committed up top to anything.
Yeah.
And so then when you and I started playing together, you and I would, because we were willing to, if an intimate moment came up of like, I'm hurting right now, we'd visit it. And because we visited it, it wasn't a huge monster. It'd be 2 seconds and it made the next moment 1,000 times funnier.
Yeah, and if you take that emotional moment really seriously, there was a runway to make really great different types of jokes that often came from one person just like being cruel or being like being mean or being like too nice, or like it just, when you took that seriously, there were all these other joke options that came out that I felt very excited about. And I personally, this is just my own thing, I moved to New York in 2010 to do comedy without knowing what that meant.
I think that's very important for people to hear without knowing what that meant.
Yes.
But keep going, yeah.
I did it. I was in an improv team in college, and I loved my improv team. I'm still friends with so many of them, and like it was my first time really experiencing theater, really, or just like play in that way. I'd played a lot of music, but hadn't really like performed in this way before. And everyone in my improv group in college was like all these different talented people who did different things with their lives and had different interests. That I felt like they were all down to commit. They were all down to like,
that's so nice.
And like they like to make these like improvised plays that we all did, and that just sort of blew my mind. And I moved to New York with this feeling of like, oh, like comedy can be anything. And then I immediately started doing these improv theaters with a lot of people who are friends and who I like, but there was an energy of like, we are actually here to be improv comedians, rather than the feeling I had before, which is like, we're here to like
discover something.
We're just here to discover something crazy. Yeah. Obviously comedic, obviously comedy minded, but I think there was a feeling of
it has to look like this.
Yeah, and a feeling of being played with a lot of people with a lot of like freedom of their artistic identities, and then going to a space where it's like, we actually, our artistic identity is improv comedian, which is amazing, which I love.
I do.
But did create this feeling of like, you are going for a joke when I'm not there with you. I'm somewhere else.
Well, you're ignoring me. That's so unintimate.
Yes.
You're not living in the very yes and way. It's like, oh, but you're driving the car to a destination that you have planned.
Yes. And I do think I got a lot better at learning about how to follow through, because I think I felt very much like, what are we fucking doing here? We're doing this. This is stupid. And I think the more I gave up on trying to guide improv, the better I got at being like, oh, you'll find your way. And like, this really isn't about.
Do you mean guide improv in general in your identity, or do you mean in literal scenes?
I mean that like when we were doing a scene and there was something really interesting I thought was happening, and that got curtailed for something that I thought was stupid.
Sure.
I was sort of like, can we go back to what I think is interesting?
And you're both doing the exact same thing.
Which is like,
well, you're both controlling.
Yeah. And like learning to give up on that. Well, I had to start doing other stuff to learn to give up on that.
Well, you also have to take right. It's like the frustrating thing about the world is like, you can't change the world, you can change yourself.
Yeah.
So if you're frustrated that nobody's committing, what you have to do is what I think we do, which is if you are driving the car, I'm going to take that so seriously and go, hey, babe, are you okay? You're having control. I'm going to make that reality real.
Yeah.
I'm not going to be the improviser going, oh, you're driving a car. I'm going to be the person in the scene going like, hey, you seem tense. You're trying to get something out. Babe, are we having, you know what I mean?
I don't want to talk about it.
I know you don't want to talk about it. You're
Can we just wait? Can we wait till we're done? I hear you. Thank you. I appreciate it. But like, I don't want to talk about driving.
I would love to wait, but you're existing in a space with other people.
I don't want to do this while driving. I don't want to do this while I'm driving.
Okay, but I'm having to live in the soup of your energy. I'm in your auric field right now.
Can you shut up while we drive? Can you just, I'm sorry. I don't know. I've tried to say this nicely.
You know how that language affects me. You did that on purpose.
I tried to say this nicely and you're not listening. I can't do this while driving.
Okay, you need to pull over. Hey, pull over.
Okay. I'm pulling over. Great.
Thank you.
And now traffic's gonna.
Hey.
Now that we're not driving, I really hear you, and I'm really sorry.
I really appreciate that, and I'm sorry that you felt triggered in that moment. I want you to be safe.
I know, but you gotta like.
I'm sorry, I push you sometimes, and it's
you
because
gotta
I'm
stop
scared.
pushing
I'm
me.
scared you're hiding that you're gonna leave me.
Oh my God! Can we get?
Oh my God. I didn't. It's okay if you want to leave me. That's fine. That's fine. No, I don't.
No.
That's fine.
No,
it's not your fault. I wouldn't blame you.
No, I. It's so weird. I never would have. I haven't thought about that or never considered it until you said it.
Yeah, but don't. It's not a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Like,
no, that's actually really blamey. That's
really
really blamey. I hate you. No, I actually didn't make this happen. No, I disagree with that.
So cruel.
Okay, that's cruel. That's
so
awful.
Cool to be like, I did until you said it.
To like actually look dumbfounded and go, whoa, I would have never left you had your demons not come out. Yeah. Hell. Absolute hell.
This message comes from Greenlight. Ready to start talking to your kids about financial literacy? Meet Greenlight, the debit card and money app that teaches kids and teens how to earn, save, spend wisely, and invest with your guardrails in place. With Greenlight, you can send money to kids quickly, set up chores, automate allowance, and keep an eye on your kids' spending with real-time notifications. Join millions of parents and kids building healthy financial habits together on Greenlight. Get started risk-free at greenlight.com/Spotify.
So good, so good, so good.
Great brands, great prices. Everyone's got a reason to rack.
Because they have framed jeans.
Nike? Yes. Just so many good brands.
Vince, Kurt Geiger London, Rag & Bone, and more are at Nordstrom Rack stores now. You never know what you'll find, but you know it's going to be so good. Great brands, great prices. That's why you rack.
Okay, so for the listeners who, again, maybe all of a sudden felt like Tim and I were fighting, because all of a sudden, Tim and I, who know each other's cadences so well, when there's a slight shift in it, we know the other one's beginning a bit.
Yeah, that's true.
That's how it is. And that's why, like, I think a lot of people are like, how do you know? It's like, well, because we know each other. We trust each other. And so the second it's a little shifted, it's, oh, we're off to the races.
Yeah.
And I think that's part of our process is daydreaming together out loud. Is okay. That I hated how pretentious it sounded while I said it, but it is what it happens, because I think you and I are very childlike, play based, like pretend.
Yeah.
We're in the middle of a conversation, and I think it would be minimized now to be like, it's very ADHD of you, but it's like you will stop, and if a song's playing, we'll start singing and then doing a bit and then come back to the conversation, because it's not distracted. It is inspiration and then come back, and inspiration and come back. Two things I want to cover.
Okay.
One, I want to make sure I let people know how we started creating together.
Yeah.
And then two, I want to hear about clay on the mound, meaning how you literally create. Because people just heard how we sometimes create characters, right? So sometimes you and I might do that little bit and then be like, ooh, okay, are they husband and wife? But maybe we should make something with that.
Yeah.
And so how do you, because you have all these wonderful, weird songs and these very touching, like children's songs that you did for Sesame Street. Are you sitting down in the morning and writing it? Are you just fiddling on the guitar? How does it work?
So generally I try to write a lot and try to free write a lot. And that just sort of, what free writing does for me is just gets me in the practice of writing. So when I have an idea, I write it down immediately before I forget. So like in my daily life, or if a melody or line comes to me, I'll record it on my phone and then come back to it later. But in terms of like writing music and musical comedy, or even character stuff and voice stuff, it's just like, this is, forgive me, there's like a Tom Waits story where like he's in the studio and
It's okay, I don't really know who that is.
You don't know Tom Waits?
I hear a lot of people talk about him and I know I talk like this, I think.
Yeah.
Okay.
I had a big moment with him in college. But there's a story where he was in the studio and he like couldn't finish a song, and he starts like talking to the sky, being like, he starts talking to the song, being like, I'm gonna get you, like,
whoa, I love
I'm gonna
that.
find you, I'm gonna wrestle you, like you stay here, like I got you, I'm gonna bring you here.
Domed the song is incredible.
And I think about that a lot because I do think you try to stay generative. I try to stay like in space of creating stuff and documenting what I do, and then like if something starts coming to me, there's like an urgency, like get a version of it down ASAP, and then repeat that over and over, and then iterate on it, and then bring it on stage. And once it's on stage, then you can start making little cuts here and there. But I do think it's like the clay for me is this like is impulse, I suppose. And the moment I have impulse, like do it.
The thing I am most resistant to is urgency.
Yeah.
Because if I feel like a panic, I'm like, well, it's too much pressure. I can't get to my phone. I can't get this idea. And I'll make sure I abandon that idea. Because I'm like, if it comes back, great. But if I feel pressure right now, it doesn't feel safe to keep trying to find.
So I feel totally differently
Okay, I love this.
because if you don't get it, it's because it's not going to come back.
But fuck that. I actually really resent that shit. Because it does. And it comes back better or different. But this idea that it's like every beautiful, brilliant idea is a little bubble that if you don't catch, you're a failure.
Oh, I don't think you're a failure. I just think you've lost
though,
it.
a little bit.
Well, no. So here's why I disagree with that. It's not a failure to lose an idea. Ideas are going to come every day, every moment. Like there's endless ideas and endless places for them. You know what I mean? It's like
I hear you, but that's what I mean. That's how my sieve works, where it's like if the idea sits with me and stays with me right next to me, I can understand it, I can get to know it, I can flesh it out. But if I'm supposed to chase after idea and make sure to write it down and try and keep it, it's not my idea.
I think I just totally think about that differently, where it's not about like, you know, trying to get it. It's just that it's there for a moment, you know? And so like I want to be with it for...
So you're motivated by that?
Yeah. I want to be with it for as long as I can until it goes. And being with it means documenting and repeating it. I'm a big repeater. I repeat stuff over and over again. It's very annoying.
No, I call him P. Sherman 42 Wallaby Way, Sydney.
Yeah. What?
Dory, when she's trying to remember the address on the goggles.
Yeah.
Ideas in my head will repeat like that.
I sing songs over and over in my head. I record them. I re-record them with, stand-up and jokes. I do them many times on stage before I even consider changing them often.
Really? What?
Some of them.
But consider changing them. So they come fully fledged?
Some do. I mean, a lot of them will definitely change, and you have to respond and find ways to let the audience in. But a lot of ideas, I'm just I just need to say it over and over and over again. And bludgeon an audience with it being good. And then honestly, my behavior and my delivery meets the text.
Well, you, in the same way where we're talking about a super commit, you know the joke isn't working, so you're going to make the funny thing the fact that you're refusing to give up.
A big thing about my comic energy that I've realized over the years and learned to lean into is that like the big joke is that isn't it funny that somebody is doing this thing that is so fucking dumb? Like, can you believe like why would somebody, aka me, be saying this thing that is so stupid and yet I'm saying it? You know,
Obsessed.
it's like that's the sort of energy I'm putting out.
Well, I think that's why we work together too. Because my thing is, it's like if I am not funny on stage and I don't get a laugh, I'm absolutely fine.
Yeah,
I'm good. I did say what I wanted to say. And if you don't think it's funny, not fuck you, but like, bummer.
Yeah.
Bummer for you, not me. I got up there. I did the thing. I don't need you to like me.
Well, no, it's interesting. I feel a version of that. And I also feel this thing where I'm like, but you guys, you can get there. I know you can get there.
So you
know you can get
this
there.
This is where it gets childlike though. It's like, you know when a kid repeats a joke until someone laughs?
Yeah, I do. Yes, I do know that.
But that's where it is endearing. And it just literally made me laugh.
Yeah.
But I think the laughter comes from just a different place. And you're allowing the laughter to not necessarily have come from the impressive joke you made, but from you just being there.
Yeah. And I think that's part of why I think of like with the clay of ideas, I think they come and I think maybe catch them as I'm also too aggressive. You're just present with them to the point that you can bring them back again, you know? And like in that intentional way, because in my experience as a songwriter, like, you know, melody is like a phantom that disappears unless you attach it to structure immediately, you know?
Really?
For me, you know, I think
so you find melody separate of words and words separate of melody?
Usually I have a line.
Okay.
And the line is both the melody and the lyric.
Okay.
And then I build out around that. You know, there's a Paul McCartney quote where he's like, a big reason why they were so prolific is he's like, because we couldn't record. We couldn't record like a part of a song and come back to it. So the only way
I get chills.
So the only way like that line that we just had would ever come back is if we finished the song as soon as possible.
Wow.
You know? And then they come back to the song, they have to remember learning it. And then in that memory, it becomes something else perhaps. But they couldn't just like record a line in their phone or write a chorus and then come back to it. They had to finish the whole song.
I hear what you're saying because that immediacy battles perfectionism.
Yes. Yeah.
In a really great way.
Yeah. And then that idea becomes something else rather than the feeling of like, oh, if it comes back to me, it'll come back to me fully formed or better formed. And I that's where I like push back because it's like, and I'm not saying you said that, but I think that is like,
I think we're both speaking to the opposite of our own argument and not opposite of what each other is feeling.
Sure. Yes. Yeah. I think that's very fair. And so that feeling of like, let's get it at like, let me finish it and get it out now is a feeling of like honoring the idea as it came to you and a recognition that it will go if otherwise. And that's not a failure. If it goes, it goes. You lost one. Are you
looking for these ideas? Like, are you kind of starting your day with the intention, like, I need ideas to come, or do they come upon you?
It depends.
Okay.
I try to, like, write as much as I can or give myself space for composition as much as I can that, like, if an idea comes, it comes, or I try to force some stuff sometimes. And through force, sometimes you find something and sometimes you don't. I write a lot of songs for the Story Pirates, which is an arts institution and podcast that takes stories written by kids and turns them into shows for the kids.
So the kids at schools will write stories and then they are like animated for both the stage and for songs by grown-up adults, and they make it delightful, and these kids get to see something that they made come to life.
Yes. And that's always really fun because it's like, oh, they just give me the prompt and they give me the story, and then I just have to like sort of find what is my first musical impulse to that story. Now let's try to fit these two together. That just becomes a craft game, which is very fun. I write a lot of songs for...
Do you know I auditioned for Story Parts? Didn't get it in like 2015.
So what I'll say as knowing you, that is surprising to me because I think you'd be great at it. But also knowing that there's so many people who I think are so good and would be good at Story Pirates who haven't gotten it, it's not surprising to me.
Yeah,
you know, it's like...
I know. I just think of that as like, that was like the... if you didn't go to NYU, you could be technically a part of that crew if you were part of Story Pirates.
That's true.
And I didn't get in, so I was double, not NYU, not Story Pirates.
It's how I made a lot of friends who went to NYU and to Northwestern.
Yes.
It's like... but I write a lot of songs for... Root Tales of Magic, and those are sort of songs that like fit within the story and come from character, and those often are collaborations with specifically Branson Reese, who was the DM for Root Tales of Magic for a long time now. Christopher Hastings and him are sharing.
And DM is Dungeon Master, which is a term in Dungeons and Dragons, which means kind of like head honcho, yeah?
Yeah, basically. Okay. But like when we were trying to develop, different story beats, we would like write, he would give ideas and direction and a few lyrics, and Chris has now done a similar thing to Christopher Hastings. And that is fun just to be like, oh, you give me some... I'll say both of them, like, you give me some, like, template songs that you, like, want to reference material. You give me some lines that you definitely want in this, like, story piece, and then let me sort of fill it out from there. And that's, like, a fun way of being a little more workmanlike and being like, let me write a song for this other thing.
Yeah, well, when it's like our art is money, it's like that is a good format to have something a little bit different than the creative.
Yes, and those productions end up being, like, sort of bigger songs, so we end up producing them more. And that practice is like really good, but because for me, the songs that are my songs end up being like very short, 30 minutes to a minute 40, you know, like.
You know what? Pause before we keep going with that,
okay.
because what I am hearing in this way that you allow ideas, right, is informing one of the things I admire about you is that you tend to have a very little attachment to your work. And I don't think you're going to resonate with that right away, but I'll explain. Because you are so prolific, right? Because something that I might be like, well, that's a draft, even though it's not, right? Like, I'm not going to take it any further. I don't let it live anywhere. You let something live immediately. So what, and this ties back into how we met. I was so floored because my friend from college, Michael Wolf, who is in comedy and does directing now, was like, oh my gosh, you got to hear about this guy. He makes these incredible postcards with these fun, like weird bits. You know what I mean? And you had done cool shit, weird shit with Katie and Branson.
Yeah.
Josh Sharp and Matt Denny had a show at UCB East in 2013, and you had done it, and you had handed out these postcards that had like really brilliant sort of like weird bits on it between the characters that you guys had created. And it was nice paper, and it was like there was designs on it. And then Michael told me, he was like, this guy will do a postcard a day and leave it in any coffee shop anywhere.
Yeah.
So when I heard that, I get so in love in attachment to something I've made.
Yeah.
And I go, I love this postcard, and then I keep it. Right. But when I heard that, I was like, who is this guy? Because you were making beautiful things with like wisdom and funny jokes on it and literally just leaving it somewhere.
Yeah.
And to me, that was this non-attachment that was revolutionary. And this is before I met you, but I was like, what is, and so when I finally did meet you, I was like, this is that guy.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, so for that project specifically was that Branson and I had this idea of like, magic cards, like the Magic the Gathering.
Oh, just like trading cards of any type?
No, they're like a very specific game. Magic the Gathering is a game.
I know Magic the Gathering. I didn't realize it was different than any sort of gaming card thing.
It's its own thing, but it's basically just like, this is the character. This are the moves it does. This is what it does in the game.
Yeah, like Pokemon.
Yeah, kind of like that. And we were like, oh, it'd be funny if we just like did that in like life and like gave people a card that said like,
That's so
like,
cute.
Plus 5 points, you have developed a theorem.
Morgana Le Fay says hi. And
or like, minus 15, like the Orc King has learned your name, that type of stuff.
Urukai.
Yeah, really that type of stuff. And so that was like a game we were sort of playing with, and then I just started making those and just like leaving them places because I thought it'd be funny if someone found them. And those just slowly developed into me like drawing on the cards and writing jokes on the cards and getting a little better as an illustrator and getting better at just like the visual style of like leaving stuff places. Or I started actually just giving them to people. I'd like dropping them from someone on the train. I'd drop it on from someone reading a book. I'd leave it next to someone on the sidewalk,
I loved it.
And the idea at the time was that like, what a cool, weird thing. Would it be a weird thing to jump into people's day?
And you had no attachment to what you were writing on it or the art of it?
Well, I think the original idea was that like other people would do this too.
Great.
I've always thought that like by doing things my way, I'd be starting a movement of people who want to play with me.
You are, but it's just not in the way that you can see or wanted it.
Yeah, it's like, will you guys play with me? You can do this too.
Oh, my heart.
But then,
but to this point, right? I'm thinking as we're even talking, you are a great illustrator. These have full cartoons on them, and that is very childlike in the way it's like I do every art because I'm just playing.
Yeah. Their energy of like, I want to give it out. I want people to play with me. I want to come back. And then it just became sort of like, oh, this is fun. I'm going to do this every day for a little while. I ended up stopped giving them to people and just sort of hiding them places. Basically because I had one friend be like, she saw one of the cards. I forget exactly what it said.
You put timestamps on it when you would leave it.
I would post like who I gave it to, when I gave it to, where I gave it to that person. And I posted one, and a friend was like, hey, just so you know, like if a man gave me this specific card on the subway, which is you said you did, I would feel really uncomfortable. And as someone who was like, this is the spirit of play for me.
It's really complicated.
And I basically, I was like, you know what? I can't force anyone to play with me. She's right. You know, if this happened to her, I don't want to do that to anyone's day. So I just started like leaving them and hiding them places to be found. And that did become just like a practice of like getting an idea, put it out there, and it's gone.
That's so hard because we're working towards a world where she can feel safe and people can feel safe doing that. But she's not wrong. Like if a man approaches anyone in that way, or if a stranger approaches you, especially in this day and age, and also it is very imposing to say, "Take this thing from me." So on its face, and you're right, but also because we know you, our heart breaks because we go, oh, that's a kindness. You were giving a kindness. But there's no discernment. People don't know that. So that's tough, though. That's really tough.
It's tough. It's also like, I think this is one thing. First of all, I stopped doing this in 2016 because when Trump got elected, like the common space felt different for me.
Yeah,
like
I agree.
It felt different. And one thing, I mean, I'll just say this, like when I started reading, when Me Too became a movement of...
Well, learning about the experience that you hadn't like considered, or you considered. You were a person who
I had
considered
it, of course, but I the thing that I was embarrassed to realize when I saw all these people who I knew talking about their experiences was that I do all these jokes and characters and like even some of like lines in the cards and stuff where it's like the joke is I would never say that. You know, I'm saying something I would never say, and then suddenly being like...
The joke is you have to know me, despite my physical appearance looking exactly like the person who's harmed you.
But also taking for granted, be like, but people know I'm a nice guy, but I'm clearly a nice guy, and being like, oh, so many women, so many people...
Also so many nice guys, quote unquote.
Yeah, and being like, if the premise of this joke is that like you have to trust that I, the person, don't mean it, you actually have no reason to trust that beyond aesthetics. And I am seeing now by people speaking about their experiences that like men will use those aesthetics as a screen. And so that made me be a lot more like, I can't trust that people are going to just allow me to be playful around them. If I enter these like more dangerous spaces that you and I trust each other to go with.
Yes.
Like, I think I tried that with other people in other spaces too, and was like, that's just not fair. You know, I think.
Well, first of all, beautiful, magnificent. That's how everyone should be thinking all the time, is considering the impact of privilege, of where you are, of like, despite who you are as an individual, despite the fact that you might have had the hardest life, the worst thing, just acknowledging that, and the fact that we don't know each other. But I think our challenge as artists, right, is we're hoping to create a world in which people are safe. So I think the happy medium, right, is like, it is the thing where it's like you are the person who does need to take up space among the people who need to learn. And that's also hard because your impulse is to like hide and like literally hide the cards.
Yeah.
Instead of the happy medium of like an invitation of like, and I don't know what that looks like at all, but I think that is where we need to go in all sort of intersectionality, not just male, female. I really think an invitation needs to be continually brought. And to your point, a self-reflection that I am so safe working with you and trust you so much. And it's been so healing in just my trust of people and not just men. But because I know you self-reflect and you consider experiences outside your own. And I think Me Too, you did that specifically, but I think you've always done that.
Yes. And I try to do that. I also, just to be selfish and crass for a second, like I'm a comedian. I do this to make comedy, and the comedy that I want to do is comedy that brings joy.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of avenues that are more mean-spirited than others that I do think bring joy. I want to do, but that is my intention. And so if these things get in the way of that. I want to be aware of it and not be like, oh, fuck you guys for not like letting me bring joy. You know, it's ridiculous.
But I,
you know?
I actually think that's a really unattached, good perspective because it isn't a hero like I'm a good guy. It is like, hey, I want to do this thing and I have to learn this space.
Yeah, I want to make you laugh.
And I also don't
baby.
think that's selfish or crass.
Yeah.
I think that's maybe where more people should be. Of like, hey, if I want to do this, I can't strong arm you, and I have to learn the space, and I have to learn how to do this.
Yeah. You know, a recent joke I've been doing. I've never had a joke of like, here's who I am. Like,
No, you don't have like personal stuff.
Or like, oh, hey everyone, like I'm Tim, and like just so you know something about me. I never had that joke in my life until now, which is like, hey, I'm Tim.
Teeth Like Beak?
Well, no, this is brand new. This is post Teeth Like Beak.
Oh my gosh.
This is hey, my name's Tim. If you don't know me, I'm basically like if Stuart Little was gorgeous. Which like doesn't actually make complete
Tim,
sense.
that makes total sense.
But like
that makes total sense.
The energy of it does like.
But that's alt comedy in a nutshell.
Yeah.
That's what mine worked when I said my style is like friend of a woman who does Soul Cycle.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
And it's like that, I guess. But gorgeous Stuart Little is so funny.
Yeah,
because it's you.
And it's also I'm like
it's you.
And then like, and by the way, I'm not saying I'm gorgeous.
No,
I'm saying I'm like if Stuart
Little was gorgeous.
Yeah,
yes,
you know.
And not to say that Stuart isn't currently gorgeous, but if he was gorgeous,
yes. So, and that actually does a thing of like, well, now you know what I'm telling you about myself, rather than assuming.
But also,
you know,
to me, that is creativity at its core, right? Because everyone these days, genuinely, instead of being creative, and I don't mean it as like kids these days, but I don't think they know this. Says an I am a INFP or INTJ. They say I'm these things, so I'm safe. I'm this, like I'm a Pisces, so I'm this.
Yeah.
And they give themselves all these labels, which feel good to them, but also explain themselves to others. Whereas you have taken this space and gone, I need to communicate how I am. And I need to, like, to me, right, we can find everything in that.
Yeah.
Gorgeous Stuart Little, right? So comfortable with your sort of sexuality, your identity, because Stuart Little is not an alpha male.
Yeah,
but
there's a boyishness.
Gorgeous as an adjective.
Yeah.
There is a boyishness, there's a silliness.
Stuart Little is a family member. It's like, I'm your brother. It's sort of a thing too.
But,
you know?
100% endearing.
A big thing that Sebi said about the Teeth Like Beak, like that he was like, Tim, your energy. He actually gave a great point. He's like, because we were talking about Joe Pera, who I'm a huge fan of.
Love Joe Pera.
And I was like, I'm not really a character like Joe Pera on stage. I'm all these other things. And Sebi pushed back a little bit. He's like, there is a baseline character that you're doing on stage. And it's sort of like the kid who is basically telling his babysitter how to play with him.
Oh,
you know?
my heart. Absolutely.
And I was like, and he was like, here are some ways just to make that a little clearer so we know what to go for.
That is so clear and sweet.
Yeah.
Because guess what that is? Silly and fun. That's what your comedy is.
Yeah. And also like, guess what? Like, and there's also some not cruelty there, but there's some nastiness there too. My parents are paying you to be here.
Oh,
you have to.
A kid's
you
a brat.
have
A
to
kid's
play
a brat,
with
but
me.
a kid isn't violent. A kid demands you. But I really mean that, like in a power dynamic way. You can't be. Well, whatever. But I love that. And I also love that maybe so in the same way that I'm talking about how we're looking for all these labels to feel comfortable and safe. That character label does affirm you and frees you.
Yes.
Whereas a lot of the other ones, I say, I'm this, so you need to do this.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, no. That you actually need to show me or live the identity. You can't just scream it at me.
Yes. Yeah. And I think it's an organic experience, and you don't really know what you are until people sort of tell you in some ways. So like the audience sort of tells you.
Yeah,
you know?
I'm here for sure.
But in terms of how we started working together, my memory, I mean, I'll tell you my memory and you tell me if you have a different take on it. We did a film sketch directed by Julio Torres, written by Spike Einbinder.
Was it written by Greta?
I thought it was written by Spike.
Okay, maybe Spike. New bar.
It was at a bar, and the bit was bread bowl cocktails.
I'm sorry, this was ahead of its time because it's gonna sound hack. I think it was 2013 or 2014. It was avant-garde for the time, but it was the idea that in like Bushwick or hipsters at the time were trying to outdo each other with the chicest, weirdest drink possible. And so
it was like soups.
It was straight up just soup in a cup.
Yeah. And so I met you there on that shoot, and To be perfectly honest, like I think it was.
You were so forgettable.
Well, I mean, it was like a small shoot, so it was like I hadn't met you before. We had known some of the same friends, so it was like it was meeting somebody for the first time and be like, oh, cool, But I didn't. It's not that you didn't make an impression. It's that like we didn't have nothing happened. Like we met each other and had a nice time. And then I saw you later at I believe Union Hall. And it was
you saw me later at Union Hall?
It was we bumped into each other. Maybe we had more like social interactions after that.
Great.
But what I remember is that we had did that, and then I saw you later at Union Hall at someone else's show, and we were just like, "Oh, hello, nice to see you," blah blah blah. And then we somehow fell into this bit that became teacher student, which is like, I think I did some voice that was like. I'm making this up right now, but it was some version of like, oh yeah, no, today was fine. And I coached an improv class, and you were like, oh, you coached an improv class? And I was like, yeah, and like these students, like they're really, God, I'm really inspired by them. And then you were sort of like, you like sort of dropped in immediately being like, really? You were inspired by them, but you're so amazing.
Because I'm an asshole.
Yeah, but you're so amazing. I was like, no, but really like, it's when you get to be at my level, oh yeah, when I get to be at your level, like you just find like inspiration everywhere, and you're like, that is so. I just wish I could be like that. You actually are like. It was,
no, me.
Yeah,
I could never be like that. I'm just visiting New York City.
Stop. You already are.
Okay.
Yeah, and then so like, oh hey man, hey Sam, how you doing?
Yeah.
And there was something like that where I think I instantly felt like, oh, that was like an easy game, like. And it was like a very clear game to me. And then I think like next time, then maybe I saw you some other time. In my memory, I was like, remember the thing that we did? That was kind of funny. Like, what if we did it
I
somewhere?
can tell you word for word what happened after that.
Okay, that was my memory. So
it's beautiful memory. I forgot about the Union Hall moment. I now even literally remember the white t-shirt I was wearing because I stole it from my sister.
Interesting.
But that happened, right? We did the bit. And then I was like, haha, like, oh, like that was fun. And we didn't, so I similarly, in the exact same feeling, like at the sketch, it was like, hi. And, whatever. Because we didn't have time to do bits or even talk or whatever. So then Union Hall thing was very brief. It wasn't a full scene.
It was before a show.
It was before a show, and it was like a couple back and forth. So like, but we had established that. So then when we did the special without Brett Davis.
Yes.
We did Joe Firestone had an episode where she was like the sickly child we were raising money for.
Yeah.
I was Miss Manhattan and you were the puppeteer.
Yes, yeah.
And we were getting ready in the green room of Manhattan Network channel.
Yeah.
Like that. It's a local Thank you, sorry. Manhattan. We got some special without. All of us are, former soldiers. Manhattan Network, Neighborhood Network.
Yeah.
Okay, so Tim and I, we were up. This is my exact memory of where it escalated from the Union Hall thing.
Yeah.
Because I, again, was obsessed with you as an artist, and I didn't associate you with the art.
Yeah.
I still didn't. In my head, I was like, I followed you on Twitter, and in my head, it wasn't that guy I met at a sketch or anything. I was so separate, and I don't know how to explain that, and I don't mean that in a positive or negative way.
Yeah.
But it's kind of like, you're like, that's the artist that I follow on Twitter. And then that's Tim, who's also a comedian. It's different. So you had done doing this bit where, Paul Gale had just done the sketch of like, Starbucks gets my name wrong. And it was like, to sweeping the nation.
Yeah.
We're like, oh, they wrote the wrong name.
Yeah.
And you were doing what I think was my favorite bit that anyone did, is that you wrote such hyper-specific, niche, weird little paragraphs and be like, they got my name wrong again.
Yeah, I would write on coffee cups. Specifically, the first one was
orange peel. Hedgehog.
It was an armadillo wearing an orange peel as a hat. Shout out to Lisa Hannawalt, the cartoonist who eventually designed BoJack Horseman, because she had all these animal illustrations with like wearing hats, and I think that was like very inspiring to me.
So you wrote that, and you would like it'd be mainly the cup, and then you sipping it, and be like, oh, they got my name wrong. And so I screenshot it because I like to have a background that makes me laugh. So I look at my phone and I get happy, and so. Back then, I'd made it my background.
Yeah.
Because I look at it every time I get like, oh, I'm delivering an orange peel. That is so funny. And so, like a genuine like rom-com, like, and not in a romantic way.
Yeah.
My phone was on the table, and it was about to. The show started at 11, and Tim goes, "What time is it?" And taps my phone. Do you remember this?
Yeah.
Taps my phone, and in the best way, Tim goes, and immediately becomes teacher student. Like it was like, what is this?
Yeah.
And it was like, it wasn't, I didn't get to be like, oh, I'm embarrassed, or because I didn't also feel embarrassed, but sometimes you perform that.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
But so you and I already knew the characters, and I was like, sorry, Mr. Platt.
Yeah.
and I was like, I just thought it was a really good lesson. And like you and I were doing the bit.
Yeah.
So then we kept doing the bit, and it was like such joy, such fun. And it was like, not even that it needed to be not a thing, but it was just like, oh, I appreciate this is a thing.
Yeah.
And both of us treated it so normally and then I think we kept doing the bit throughout. And then after M&N that night, we were like, or the special, we were like, we gotta write that, right?
Yeah.
And then I think you had a spot at The Annoyance, and you're like, let's try it.
Yeah. That sounds about right. I think that's how it happened, and it was very organic.
It was.
It was very organic, and it was like I remember seeing that. Yeah, I do remember seeing
really?
the background.
Did you even register it, or did we just go bits too quick to register?
I think we must have registered because I think there must have been some version of like, what? Was
that weird?
Yes. Well, it's funny because at the time it's like it. I believed what you said. Oh, I saw this and I think it's really funny.
Yeah.
But I think my first thought was like,
she obsessed with me.
Well, it's funny because it wasn't that. It was there was a feeling of like, because I think it's very natural to be like,
or maybe
are you obsessed with me? Are you into me? Are you like, is this a weird thing?
Yeah.
And
like, are these bits then a crush or whatever that is? Yeah.
But it was just very clear that wasn't what it was. So you know what I mean? Like it was just very clear. And so
my energy was it really makes me so happy still.
Yeah, it was like. So, and I don't know, just you were very easy to play with at that time. So it was a little bit of me being like, this person's interesting. That's fun. That's weird and funny. And also pretty affirming to be like, oh, they get me?
Yeah.
You know, they
oh, that's nice. That's how you felt?
I think a little bit. It's like, oh, that's the fact that anyone responded positively to any of the things I put out there felt so impossible to me.
Aww.
You know, and so that someone like cared enough too, I think I still feel that way, that like anyone, you know,
it's so
the
funny
idea anything I make could like
resonate.
There's one people go, oh, I want to remember that is like is a thing that I'm very moved by.
Well, because to me, in the exact opposite way, I never assume anyone's gonna. I don't like people seeing my background, and I want it for me because I'm looking at my phone all day.
Yeah.
But if people could not, that would be great.
Yeah.
And so the fact that it was was a very like authentic one where I was like, no, and not even because it was your thing. It was kind of like, you don't get to know what I like.
Yeah.
Like that's too personal.
Yeah.
So it's almost in the exact inverse of like the things I love. Whoa, and you saw it and you didn't judge or whatever it was. You know.
There was something that made it not weird that just tonally.
I think the pure energy of it.
Yeah. There was it's interesting. But then after that we started doing this one disgusting bit over and over again. And
teacher student was where Tim and I played with I mean the obviously taboo of like the teacher wants to fuck the student, and it is like we did it in a very Marilyn Monroe gross teacher way.
Well, it wasn't that he wanted to fuck the student. He wanted to inflame this is very clear. He wanted to inflame the student's inappropriate desire until the point.
No, he created the desire and then inflamed it.
No, he observed the natural desire and used all this techniques.
Sure. Manipulation.
And then the moment when
exploited it.
Basically, the moment he like invited actual movement, would then shut it down and shame her for feeling that was appropriate at all, even though he had
made an environment in which the student felt very comfortable.
Which was move. Yeah, I mean, and it was just like it was funny for us.
It was so uncomfortable. It made everyone so uncomfortable.
We got a lot of groans in these,
Loved it.
But that were very compelling groans. We
episode title: compelling groans. Ew.
Yeah, kind of. I mean,
ew.
That River Ramirez. It's like
that's my favorite voice. River, when in the back of our sketches, going
no. Like that. I mean, I have such respect for River, and had a lot of respect for River back then too. Like that. Also felt like, oh, River gets what we're doing.
When I would hear River say no, I was like, fuck, I'm in the pocket.
Yeah.
Like I felt so good.
And these were opportunities for us to like act.
Yeah.
You know, and I love to act in comedy. And I like a thing that rubbed me the wrong way about just sketch in general was like sort of uncommitment. Going back to this, people not committing to the circumstance and just sort of like, oh, if you cry, you're going to cry goofy tears.
Yes.
You know, a lot of goofy tears. And it was like, I just like, and this was like because the joke was, getting people to feel that like inappropriateness, a titillation, a walking towards something really like nasty.
Yeah.
I felt like it only worked if we were very committed to it.
And the joke is also, we're going to do the thing you don't want us to do.
Yes.
So when we do it, we get a laugh, but we're also doing it. Like,
yes.
It's literally me like whispering wagon wheel lyrics in your ears. You're like, a monologue is just a song without a melody. Like, it's like, and it's, to us, it makes us throw up, which is why it's delightful to do.
Yeah. And then we just started making more bits in that mode, and then we did our first 1 hour show together. I think that was called The Breakup.
No, Orgy was first.
Orgy was first?
Yeah, because Carl St. Lucie scored The Breakup.
Right.
Maybe.
I don't remember which came first. I in my memory it was The Breakup.
Okay.
But
because we did it over the 8.
Yes. Which I think seems right, because I don't think we would have booked Union Hall.
You're
before
so right.
We
You're
booked
so yeah. Wow, that would have been too big for our britches.
But we did a 1 hour long show that was just like one cup. That was the idea of, we wanted to capture the feeling of you at a restaurant overhearing a breakup. And like me and my wife are big eavesdroppers.
Oh yeah.
And that's sort of like a big.
Well, Tim and I we didn't go on the stage. We put our table in the center of the audience.
Yeah.
Which is so cruel.
Yeah, and made the only seats table seats as well. So you were all sitting at tables, and basically just like, yeah, my wife and I love eavesdropping, and it was fun to be like, oh, we can.
Tim's real life wife.
Yes, my real life wife. And being like, oh, can that be a performance? Because we my wife and I will just like stop talking.
I love that.
As this is happening, and just be like,
she has hawk ears too.
Oh, she is perceptive. She is perceptive. And there's a lot of like, there's even moments where we're having other conversations, and like a look in one of our eyes is like something that like
oh, like cueing you to listen to another one.
Like hold up.
Oh,
hold
I
up.
love that.
And so I think that was the idea. So we did like a 1 hour, one scene, and that was really successful for us. And then we just started doing more 1 hour stuff and started developing a format of, we beat stuff out very clearly, but are comfortable improvising because we like understand our characters and then had to build up a.
But it helped me because I was so at the time also resistant to scripts and sitting in that, because I really in a childlike way was like, I want to be free. Yeah. But I wanted structure, and so we kind of found the perfect spot for us where it's like, here's structure, you can play within that.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is I want to talk forever. We're
out of time.
We are out of time pretty much, but
That's
I want to have the final segment.
Okay.
It is the idea that I think you and I embody, which is holding each other's poems.
Sure.
And poems are experiences, meaningful art, small moments. Poems can be anything. Poems just life. And so this section is called Thank You for Holding My Poems. And I offer a moment for you to either share a poem unrelated to me or just your artistic life experience or related to us, but before we run out, I want to make sure you share a poem.
I have can I say a few poems?
Of course.
One of my favorite poems is and some of my favorite jokes too, is a Shel Silverstein poem, which is, I made an airplane out of stone. I always did like staying home. I just think that's so funny and so like, it's a real comedy bullseye for me, because it's like a dynamic line. I made an airplane out of stone. A dynamic line. What could be next? Just what you would imagine. You know
what? It's so funny about that. What I adore about it is how big of a fuck you it is.
Yeah.
Because it's making us fill in so much.
Yeah.
It is making the reader go, what? How'd you? So did you fly? But it's not real.
And the second line is just a yes and to the circumstance. And
yes.
You're like, and it's sort of like it's a shrug. You know?
I love it.
Which I always love. Like a big, bold premise, and then not a dismissal, but a yes and to it, with the yes and being sort of like a shrug or sort of very natural.
But subversion. It's like you're expecting I never promised a big ride home.
Yeah. Yeah, like you're right.
Yeah.
Silly idea.
Yeah.
And then another poem that I think about, I learned a lot. I looked at Linda Berry's book Syllabus, which I think is a fantastic book for.
Did you recommend this to me, or have I read
I've recommended it a bunch, so I'm sure. But one of the lessons she has in it is just like memorizing poems. And one of the poems she asks you to memorize is an Emily Dickinson one, which I really love and I connect to in ways I can't like explain. But it's I felt a cleaving in my mind as if my brain had split. I tried to mend it scene by scene, but could not make it fit. The thought behind I sought to join unto the thought before, but sequence raveled out of sound like balls upon the floor.
That's sad.
It's I don't fully like grasp it, but I really.
But that's poetry.
Yeah.
It's abstract. You're supposed to feel it.
Yeah.
You're not supposed to grasp it.
Yeah.
If it was concrete, it wouldn't be poetry.
Oh yeah, and there's one more. Oh, what is it? Hold up. It's a Wallace Stevens, I think. It's
This is just to say.
No,
that's one of my favorites.
I have a notes app for rhymes.
Oh, I love that.
And
they say poetry is meant to be read aloud.
There's two different Wallace Stevens, just like, I think these are from different poems, but one of them is, I found between moon rising and moon setting, the world was round, but not for my begetting. I don't know.
What strikes me about that is I completely forgot that the moon has its own rise and set. Do you know what I mean? Because it's sunrise, sunset. It's not moonrise. And I'm going, I've forgotten about her. I'm so sorry.
Yeah, it's also, I like this.
We don't get to see her set. We watch the sunrise. We don't watch the moon set.
I also like that there's this gesture towards it, which is like, I watched it and I learned something, but it wasn't from me. You know, like I like that.
Healthy.
Another little couplet I like is and as they whispered, the refrain was like a willow swept by rain. Just very pretty.
Oh well, yeah. Because also I think of the willow sweeping the ground, not even the rain. I love that.
And then one of my favorite rhymes of all time, it's one of my favorite jokes of all time, is Lil Wayne.
Lasagna, is it going to be?
No,
okay.
That's a great one.
Okay.
It's get on my level. You can't get on my level. You would need a space shuttle or a ladder that's forever. I just think it's so funny that he goes space shuttle and or a ladder that's forever. Such a dynamic image to me.
I would have you back on for an entire capsule episode, and my friend Darian, because we have spoken about how Lil Wayne is maybe the greatest poet of all time.
One of the greatest joke writers too.
Fully a genius, and I really don't think gets the flowers deserved as a writer.
Yeah,
it's haunting, some of the lines and the way he created rap structure that has been mirrored for all rap now, like, and changed. It's like it's so poetic. I could talk about him forever. But also, you reminded me with that line. Just now we're talking poetry really quick. David Mitchell is a comedian, but he's also like a historian.
Mm-hmm.
And one of my favorite lines in this book, Unruly, that is just purely about the monarchy in England, because he's just a historian, but he's so funny and such a good writer, is when he opens talking about it, he says, I think it's history is simply an endless river of former nows.
Mm-hmm.
And I go, that's how we should be talking, baby.
Mm-hmm.
Because then I get to see a former now is I'm attached. I feel. I go for your has been. I love it. I absolutely love it. And that reminds me of it. Thank you for sharing your poems. Your literal poems.
Of course.
Well, Tim, you're one of the most special people in the world.
You're one of my best friends.
You're one of my best
friends.
I love you. I love you with all my heart. I'm so grateful for you. I really am. I could cry. I'm like, I feel affirmed whenever I see you do art in a way where I go, I get to play with him. He's a genius. And I feel so grateful in life. So thank you.
I feel grateful to know you and play with you and make work with you. And I'm very proud of all the work I've seen you make. It's very cool.
Thank you,
and this podcast and the show, it's based off of, I was very moved by that show. And very moved by, I mean, our friend Peter Mills Weiss.
Genius as well.
We saw the show together and we leave. And like the first thing we just say is like, fuck, man, what a fucking performer. It was just like, damn. It's like, because, you live in LA now, so we don't see very often.
Appreciate that.
And it's like, whereas like, it's not like I needed the reminding. But it's not like I've forgotten, but damn, like, fuck, Are
you joking? That's so validating.
Yeah.
It's not, no, to make you feel that. And also the two of you who I think know art, I feel very affirmed by your opinion.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Thank you.
Well, I end by saying, in the vein of the show, I end with telling the audience, oh my God, you're so pretty. Do you want to try it?
Oh my God.
Nope.
You're
try again.
So pretty.
Try again.
Wait, what did I do wrong?
You hit on my audience in a dripping way. This is an earnest.
Oh my
It's not
God.
It's not about how the way they look.
Oh
it's
my
the way
God.
their soul is.
Oh my God. Oh my God, you're so pretty.
There you go.
Okay.
Okay. Bye. Worse Than You with Mo Fry Pasic is hosted by me, Mo Fry Pasic. You can learn more about this week's guest and the Worse Than You team by checking out the show and episode copy. Worse Than You with Mo Fry Pasic is executive produced by Erica Ghetto, Mariah Gossett, and Lauren Mandel for Good Get and Disco Nap Productions. Oh my God, you're so pretty. Somebody that I used to know. You know?
Oh, we're in?
Yeah.
Oh. No, me not, me now.
Now I'm going to do your intro. Now
Okay.
you don't have to.
Happen to take your number. That's the best part. Happen to take your number.
Didn't have to dirt me up. That's the best part.
That's what I'm saying. That's
Is that the right thing? But that's a different part.
It's the sauce of the you know, that sort of, because it's staccato.
But are we talking about we're talking about two different parts where he does that?
Oh yeah, there's two different parts of it,
Yes.
because it's two different, and this, but the same melody.
But I'm asking because I genuinely don't know. Like, what part am I singing? What part are you singing?
Oh, so you're gonna have to turn me off. Then the records and been change your number.
That's what you're liking.
Yeah.
And mine is what part is it?
It's the same part.
I think it is
I think it's just different lyrics for a different part of the song.
Maybe that's it.
But it's the same melody line. It's
Yeah.
the same part of the song. Just different lyrics, but it's basically the same
Hey.
part.
Whoa.
It's the same
We're
part.
on the same team here.
I-
Welcome to Worse Than You. You like how I dominated?
I
that?
did like that.
Thank you. Okay. Okay, ready.